Join me as we talk all things true crime.
Made contact and shattered.
Liberty, a missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in and advised that the mother had went for a walk, came home, now they can't find her, they've been yelling for her.
Turn it over to another agency. Let's get some help.
Where are your kids? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say? You're over here in Hawaii? Dad, where are Lori's kids?
4 were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds.
Most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'm not 100% better. Let me know if you can hear me chat before I continue. But I had to get on here and talk because we are just hours away from Bryankohberger, 28-year-old who is being charged with the murders and burglary related to the Idahofour slayings. You know, today is the day that we find out, will he plead guilty, not guilty? There's a very, very, very small chance, which I don't think will happen, that he would take a plea deal. So it's just, I'm curious, has his appearances changed at all? What families of the victims will be there today? Will there be any roommates that are there today? Hello, everyone in chat. Thank you so much for being here. And again, I'm sorry I haven't spoken live with you guys. It's just I've been really sick. The little one was sick. And then, yeah, I had to get on and talk to you guys about Dateline, the information coming out there. Allegedly, this knife was bought on Amazon. Allegedly, through their sources, Brian's sister noticed he was wearing gloves and thought it was weird, searched his car, etc. Just a lot of weird information coming out from Dateline, but I found it very interesting. And I'm curious, who is believing that Papa Rogers truly is Brian? Because Dateline is pretty much saying that, according to their sources, it has come out that that is him. And we speculated here for a long time that it was him and that, it would make sense, the comments that they were making, etc. But I just wanted to play a little pre-recording that I made for you guys. I'm not going on camera right now, but I did yesterday when I was feeling a little bit better. I've got something that I want to share with you guys, so give me 1 second. And now, normally you guys know that I put together edited clips, etc. Today we're just kind of being laid back and lazy because I'm just getting back into the swing of things as far as live streams go. And I've just been working on some stuff behind the scenes that I have coming out for you guys. So give me 1 second and I will share that with you all. And like I said, thank you all so much for being here. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, please be sure to subscribe. Just wanted to let you know that I have an Idahofour investigation documentary coming out on Sunday, so it should be out first thing in the morning Sunday. It's going to include everything that we know thus far, and you guys know that I like to go into detail with my documentaries. If you haven't checked the other ones out, they're in a playlist. But yeah, I just wanted to let you know that I've been working on stuff behind the scenes. This has been going on behind the scenes for a few months, and I've just been adding material as it's been coming out. Just check it out on Sunday. It's going to be over an hour long. It's not a live stream. It's just going to be like a Idahofour special. And yeah, I hope you guys like it, and I will see you soon. So that is my little update for you guys. It'll be coming out first thing in the morning on Sunday. It's already close to an hour and a half. Just a little project I've been working on, but thank you, Rebecca Hooper. No need to be sorry for being sick. Lots of us going around. Yeah, I will keep gargling that salt water. Thank you. So I titled this live, updates, and this is interesting. So this was something, I know not everybody has Facebook. I brought this to you guys for those who don't have it or haven't seen it, but going back to our conversation about Papa Rogers. So in case anybody didn't know, that account actually opened up a Facebook group on Facebook relating to this crime. So they opened up this group, and that is where, you know, a lot of conversations take place on Facebook, is in these groups. So this person, account holder, opened one up, and they brought up this old screenshot of the group picture, because you can pick a picture for, you know, the cover shot, etc. And whoever makes a group sets the theme of it all and puts the background pictures and all that. So this person yesterday in one of the groups was sharing that before Papa Roger went MIA, because no one has seen him, ironically, since Bryankohberger has sort of been arrested and all that. They were bringing up the fact that the cover photo originally was this for the group. And it might be a little bit blurry, but I'll just describe it for you guys. It's, you know, a whole collage of photos. And yes, the one in the middle has Kaylee with Maddie, but every single picture has Maddie. Which is sort of strange if you're dedicating a group to a quadruple murder, that, you know, there's not a picture of Ethan and all of them. It's just Maddie is in every single photo. She's with Kaylee, she's with Xana, but one thing that has just stayed the same is Maddie is just the center of all these images. So people started to speculate, was Maddie, you know, the target for Brian? I know that everyone has speculated on who's the target, etc. I just think that was noteworthy because, you know, it just seemed like whoever put that together had like a fixation on Maddie, perhaps. So that to me was interesting, as well as, you know, everything that came out in the Dateline. Did something come out in Dateline special that stood out to you guys? Let me know. Here is another little screenshot. And now we've gone through other Papa Roger screenshots in the past. And actually in my documentary, I'm adding some of them in there that I find interesting. But here he said to somebody, which was on a post that he had made, because it says author, and their name is marked out so that we don't dox them. But you seem to stalk me. I kind of like it. And then the person back kind of was just being playful and was like, then I'll see you on the next post. But just kind of eerie, you know, if this is Brian, you seem to stalk me. I kind of like it. I don't know. Just thought that was interesting. What will we find out today? Is it just going to be short and sweet? All they're going to do is, I think it's just going to be, he's going to plead not guilty. I don't think that he would plead guilty. I know that some people think that he might. I think there's a very, very, very small chance that he would. So let me just switch screens up, because guys, I'm already getting stuffed. I have to blow my nose. Sorry, too much information. But I'm going to switch the screens and just play some news clips while we just hang out together, guys. So thank you again for being here. And as you know, I usually do put stuff together and do like a show for you guys. But I'm appreciative of you guys being here with me, even though I'm not my 100% self, and just sticking with this sort of like freestyle live stream.
Idaho undergrads murdered in their beds in the middle of the night. Now the prime suspect expected to enter his plea today. Bryankohberger facing 4 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of burglary. Prosecutors say he killed Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, stabbing them multiple times in one of the most brutal murders the nation's ever seen, just before Thanksgiving of last year. News Nation law and justice analyst and retired FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer is with me right now. Jennifer, always great to have you here. And we expected to see Bryankohberger again in court, but not until next month. Then an indictment by the secret grand jury speeding things up. This is the first time we're going to be seeing him in court since his arrest. What happens? Is it quick and procedural, or is it emotional?
Well, normally an arraignment like this is very quick. It's usual. It's really where the charges are read to him. In this case, they will probably waive the reading of the indictment, and he will enter a plea of not guilty is what's anticipated. What makes this unusual, I think, is you're going to have family members there that are going to see Bryan Kohberger really for the first time in months. And I expect that to be emotional for them.
In Idaho, defendants can only enter guilty or not guilty pleas. And if a suspect refuses to respond to the judge for whatever reason, the court record will actually place a not guilty plea on their behalf. So do we know at all, have we heard what Kohberger is expected to say?
Yes, he's expected to plead not guilty. He has a crack team of defense attorneys, and that will be the plea that's entered. I feel very confident.
Let's get back to the indictment. It was very hush-hush. Why did prosecutors, do you think, opt for that grand jury?
Well, the grand jury process, a lot of people, because it's secretive and the defense is not there, feel that, is something going in just the direction of the prosecution. But when you're in there and having testified in these, listen, these grand jurors ask amazing questions. They really act as the defense element, if you will, questioning, what about this evidence? What about this? And so it's really quite an exchange. And remember, this grand jury went on for likely several weeks to present all this evidence. And then they had to convene to come up with this decision to true bill Bryan Kohberger. So from this aspect, it's the normal judicial process really practiced throughout the United States and certainly in the federal system as well.
Yeah, nothing surprising about it or nothing unorthodox, so to speak. But I'm sure a lot of these families are pleased that some progress is being made. Jennifer Coffindaffer, thank you so much.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And
All right, so let's see what else there is for us to kind of watch together. Again, this is just not my usual stream that I put together for you guys. It's just very laid back and just playing news clips to kind of catch up on things with you guys. We are only hours away from Bryan entering court and for his arraignment. What will he plead? Obviously, I think a lot of the experts are expecting him to plead not guilty. And like somebody said in chat earlier, he's come this far. He might as well just keep going, So let's see what else we got. And guys, just share your thoughts too. Thank you so much, Liam's Bond 77. I appreciate that. I'm on the mend. I couldn't just stay not like so much going on today that I had to come on and talk to you guys. He might plead guilty if the deal was probation plus a professorship. Perhaps. The hearing, I'm not sure. It's in a few hours. I want to say 12:30 on Eastern time, but I'm not 100%. I saw somebody ask what time it was going to be. Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking too, Ashley Oaks. Everyone was saying that too in the Facebook groups last night. It's going to be quick and we're not going to get any information. Yeah, well, there's going to be a lot of people just standing by, but still, I want to know what he looks like. Has he put on weight? I mean, all those things, like, yes, it seems superficial and just small details, but for someone like me, I just really want to know, like, what families are going to be there. Will he turn around in court and look at them? Because we know that in his other court appearances, Steve Goncalves was there and he didn't turn around and look at him at all. So let's see what else I can play for you guys. And thank you all for being here again. I really appreciate it.
now to News Nation legal contributor Jesse Weber. Jesse, always great to have you. So Kohberger will be back in the courtroom tomorrow morning. Should we expect any surprises, or will the proceedings be pretty straightforward here?
Well, I mean, the biggest surprise would be if he comes out and pleads guilty, which I agree with my esteemed colleague Tracy, I think is highly unlikely given what we've seen We've seen Kohberger advancing his defense team, hiring new counsel in anticipation of fighting this. And look, as devastating as this evidence appears to be on the outside, and I've been the first to—
And just to kind of add to them saying like they just don't think that he'll plead guilty. Remember his first court appearance, and he was very much like out. It sounds so stupid to say he was outspoken in court, but like he just seemed very confident. Remember, guys? And everyone was like, and he had also told his one lawyer from Pennsylvania, the public defender, that he was going to be exonerated, so all these types of wordings that he was using at the time, asked the police if he had arrested anybody else in connection. It just seems like a bunch of games and like overly confident. And hello, Pearls of Wisdom. It's good to see you. So I just think that just like they're saying, like, there's no way that he's going to plead guilty. He's going to fight this. He thinks he's smarter than everyone. Remember, another classmate had said that about him. Like, he had to let everyone know that he was the smartest in the room. So it just seems like, yeah, Chopper, he loves the attention. Maybe not even so much of it being that as much as it is he would love to get away with it. Yes, exactly. Strange exchange. He's so cocky. He won't plead guilty. Thinks he's got it won. Exactly.
To say that I think it's particularly strong, watching so many cases, following cases, seeing some faults in prosecution's cases, there's room for him to argue that this evidence might not be as airtight as many believe. So I believe he is going to plead not guilty to the 5 charges that he ultimately faces. And this arraignment is not going to be where witnesses testify or bombshell evidence comes out. The charges will be read against him. He can obviously waive the reading of the indictment, and he will enter his plea. And this should be a relatively straightforward proceeding. And if he pleads not guilty, then this moves into the next phase, the trial, where we may see a tentative trial date ultimately scheduled. Although, given the complexities of this case, I wouldn't be surprised if the trial is ultimately delayed for quite some time.
So, Jesse, I thought it was fascinating that you mentioned some of this evidence airtight. What do you think are the most critical pieces, or will be, if a trial does move forward here?
Okay, so the DNA, basically putting him at the scene, very critical, right? I mean, that is really important. But I think there are outstanding questions in terms of how that DNA was collected and how it actually tied back to Kohberger. My opinion, I think the cell phone evidence and the surveillance footage of his car is probably the most damning evidence, because while his phone was off during the key critical point of time, the fact that it was turned off, and before it was turned off was headed towards the direction of this house and then came back on the network after the killings, many people could say that shows he purposely turned off his phone to avoid law enforcement.
And remember, when we were reading through the affidavit, the arrest affidavit, they speak about, his phone and all this stuff. And it said straight in the notes, from the law enforcement's point of view and with the law enforcement's experience with other crimes. I mean, we're not even just talking murder. The people shut off their phone when they do other crimes too, So the absence of evidence sometimes is what the evidence is. It just lays out the story sometimes, So his phone was active and all that. Suddenly it goes non-active right in the time frame that people are murdered. The coroner and the medical examiner have a more direct idea of when the time of deaths were. Believe they estimated them around 4 a.m. Guys, help me out. I'm very rusty. Roxanne, good morning. I hope you're feeling well too. So Roxanne, I just wanted to thank you, since you just popped in, for sending me Cash App to get cold medicine. I definitely used it. We just had to re-up on some too. So I just wanted to thank you so much, and everyone for being here. Thanks for being here. But so it's just very interesting to think about the moves that Bryan Kohberger, allegedly was making that night that everyone was murdered. What would be the defense's excuse for the time frame that all these killings happen? The time of death for these individuals ironically just falls in line with the time that Bryan just had his phone shut off. and how many people do you know shut their phones off all the way? There might be times where you're just not touching it because it's in the middle of the night and stuff, and the forensics on that phone would show that it just wasn't unlocked and just wasn't opened, etc. But for it to be completely off and not connected to any Wi-Fi service and service that your provider supplies, it's just very suspicious. Hi, Marshall Dove. It seems as though from what I'm gathering so far in chat, she said, does anyone think he will plead guilty? It seems like everyone I'm talking to so far today is saying that they think that he will plead not guilty. But if anyone else thinks that he will just cut a deal and just end it right now and plead guilty, like, let us know. We're all curious. Hi, Alex. Yeah, I am. I'm still on the mend, and so is my little one. She's got like a lingering cough, but all the other symptoms have gone away. She's actually still sleeping, so I'm hoping that some extra time sleeping will help her and we can just chat here, guys. So I just appreciate you being here, and thank you, Alex. You do great coverage over on your channel, and I've been following other cases on other platforms and channels, so check them out too, like the Evil CJ show, Alex Erickson, CDT. They're all covering great cases, and we all cover the Idahofour case. Ruckus Rocks definitely has good content, especially on the Delphi, Justice Served Daily. We all, as a community, I think, cover these cases in such a unique way for each of us, and we all bring something to the table. And I just really appreciate everyone's opinions. And, I've been following all the stuff that's been going on with Idahofour, even stuff in the background. If I haven't brought it out to my channel, I'm still kind of with it behind the scenes. So I'm trying to keep, for those who just joined, I have a Idahofour investigation documentary coming out on Sunday. I'm trying to keep that very much factual. I know that we found out through sources on the Dateline show that, the Amazon knife the knife was bought on Amazon. Brian's sister had seen him wearing gloves and was suspicious of that and searched his car. What else did they come out saying? That they believe for sure through their sources that Papa Rogers was Brian. So I'm keeping all that information like in my mind and in my research. I'm adding a little bit of it to my documentary, but I do want to keep the documentary kind of free of this source said this source said that, and just keep it kind of factual. 100% like verified information. But I do know that Dateline is very credible. And I do know that even with gag orders, there can be sources that leak stuff, and the point of leaking it to these journalists is they're protected, so I don't know who's leaking the information, but I find it very interesting, and I find it probable for sure. I mean, if you witnessed your brother wearing gloves or whatever, and you had known about these murders, everyone knew about these murders, and you knew your brother drove a white Hyundai, I mean, it seems pretty probable that somebody in the family thought that was strange.
But the surveillance footage of his car, that it was in the area and speeding off right after we believe these killings happened. And then there's later surveillance footage showing that he was the driver of that car. That's the kind of evidence I find is going to be very difficult for a defense attorney to fight against.
Now, in addition to everything that Jesse Weber just laid out, the phone being off, his car seen speeding away, just think about everything that was gathered under the surveillance of him. Once they had an idea of, could it be this guy? Let's put tabs on him. Let's follow him. Let's watch him. Because remember, they came out saying that they had been watching him for, what was it, weeks, days for sure. They witnessed him cleaning his car, like without missing an inch, basically, is how they described it. All that can be used against him as well. Like we saw which is why I kind of took a step away from this case, because we saw in the Alex Murdaugh trial and the Lori Vallow Daybell trial, their circumstantial evidence in those cases were used against them, and the jury bought it. The jury was very much like, yeah, you know what? Her hair was found on this duct tape. That seals the deal for me. And then in the Alex case, he said he wasn't at the kennels. I hear his voice on this Snapchat video, you know, that seals it for me. And boom, convictions. So here we're going to have all these little pieces. And, you know, we haven't even heard the audio from the neighbors that day. Remember the neighbor, their camera picked up some sort of audio and a thud, etc. You know, there's things about that night that they have that I feel like we don't even know about yet. You know, like we haven't seen the video. They claim he was seen speeding away. You know, like how obvious is the speeding? Unravel, good to see you. They claim he was cleaning with bleach in his car. I mean, who cleans their car? Excuse me. Who cleans their car like that at 4 a.m. with bleach? You know, it's just screams like, okay, this is suspicious. And again, it is circumstantial evidence. It is something that a defense team would try to explain, or maybe they won't, you know, because in Lori Vallow's case, they literally barely put up a fight because it was just, it is what it is. And plus she didn't really give them much to work with because she didn't want to go down this mental health route, etc. That's a whole different story. Good morning, Ruby, and everyone else joining. Everyone joining. I'm a little bit sick. Sorry, I don't sound like my normal self, but I do have a Sunday documentary on Idahofour coming out that I hope you guys will come back and watch. So be working on that. I did put out some shorts because I am following that Corey Richins case, and that one is just crazy too. But check out my shorts that I've been editing too on a few cases, guys. So let's continue and listen to what Jesse has to say here.
Of course, they could say this is a common area. He was driving. Maybe he was going to go into the late night bar area. It's not surprising he was there. It's just too coincidental given everything we've seen. So look out for this.
And now, you know, he just reminded me of another aspect that would be interesting to see. What would his normal, regular, you know, patterns be for, it was a Saturday night, right? Or Friday. Guys, help me. I'm on so much cold medicine. My head is foggy. Either way, it was a weekend night. Or night, it was before the holiday, Thanksgiving holiday too. So a lot of students and a lot of people go out usually before they end up going home the next week. So what was Brian's usual patterns? You know, they can check his phone pings from weeks leading up, and they can check all that and see, oh yeah, he usually does go to Moscow around this time. And yeah, that's a regular thing for him to kind of turn his phone off around this time. And he goes here and it wouldn't be out of the norm for him to be in this neighborhood. I mean, his patterns will show exactly what his routines were. So we'll see. We'll see what they have to present.
Surveillance and the cell phone evidence. I think that's the biggest points.
All right, fascinating point. So a grand jury indicted Kohberger, as you know, on Tuesday, a move that canceled out that week-long preliminary hearing that was scheduled in June. Why do you think prosecutors opted for the grand jury? Is there an advantage moving forward as opposed to having a preliminary hearing?
Major advantage. If this went to a preliminary hearing, it would be public. The defense attorneys would have an opportunity to ultimately cross-examine the prosecution's witnesses. They could even call their own witnesses, and you have to convince a judge. With a grand jury, it's secret. Prosecutors are not showing their hand yet. It was their case that they wanted to present to convince a majority of these grand jurors that there's enough probable cause to go forward with this indictment. And clearly, it was a benefit to them. They don't have to show everything right now. It streamlined the process. It actually protected the rights of certain witnesses who maybe didn't want to come forward and testify at a preliminary hearing. It's a win for the prosecution, but let's not forget, they still have to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt.
So there, Jesse kind of speculated that maybe it was done in this secret preliminary hearing because, you know, they wanted to, there could have been some deal that the prosecution made with the defense saying, we have to protect these witnesses in the case. They're traumatized, that it's still very new for them. They're not ready to go up on the stand because of their mental well-being. We need to protect our witnesses. And I'm talking about the roommates, DM and BF, you know, so they might have said, you know what, fine. Because think about it. If those girls went up on the stand during this preliminary hearing that was supposed to happen and they get, you know, or they get questioned and tripped up or something like that by the defense or whatever, and then it comes out that, you know, their lawyers might say like, well, they're not well. They have PTSD right now. So you can't hold what they're doing and saying up here in this preliminary hearing against them, blah, blah, blah. So there might have been some sort of agreement between the defense and the prosecution that said, fine, we're not going to go that route because we don't want that to lead to other issues down the line, especially if somebody's not mentally like stable, if they're suffering from PTSD, you know, what good would they be to go up on that stand during the preliminary hearing? Possibly. I'm just speculating. And it seems like Jesse is sort of saying the same. Like they could have just agreed together that, fine, we'll go this route. We'll do it in secret. And we won't call them up. So that could be what have happened. Alex said, I didn't watch it. Jen Lu, I'm assuming you're speaking on the Dateline. Jen Lu said, lots of inside sources and stuff, so don't bother now. I'm thinking I may watch it anyways because you're right, things do leak. I was thinking, you know, I've been along the same lines of that, especially with Ashley Banfield coming out with my sources said this and my sources said that. Something struck me as soon as Ashley came out saying that her sources told her there would be no preliminary hearing, and then boom, there really wasn't a preliminary hearing. Like it seems like, and it's true that sources are allowed to speak to the media like in private and have things protected. Now there is a gag order, so I don't know like how risky it would be for someone to think that they'd be protected by the sources. You guys let me know. You guys know more about those kinds of things than I do, but I'm thinking that it is possible that there were sources that gave this information to Dateline, to Ashley Banfield, and they're just being protected under their amendments that protects them. Granny's watching. Good to see you. Did I hear you say that said that creepy account that seemed to know details was Brian? Apparently, and again, this is coming from Dateline sources, quote unquote, they're claiming that they have confirmation that it was Brian, that Papa Roger was Brian. So time will tell. And think about it. That account disappeared when all this stuff was when he was arrested and all that. Hello, CDT. Good to see you. Can anyone confirm if I heard that correctly? The Reddit user, I'm not sure about the Reddit user. I just know about the Papa Rogers, Facebook account. That was the only thing that seemed to be solidified by sources. Again, it's just sources. We don't know 100%, but I'm very much leaning towards that, considering we've gone through a lot of the Papa Rogers posts, and there were things that he knew about that nobody knew about yet. He had posted about the sheath for the knife that was left behind. Like he posted something about it being left behind or something before it came out that it was. Something like that, guys. We've gone through it in other live streams in more detail. So if you want to check those out, definitely go back and check it out. Hi, Johnny. It's good to see you. Everywhere he goes, he can leave a knife sheath with his DNA on it just in case he needs an alibi. Right? I mean, that would be a little crazy. Hello, Titanium Built. Okay, let's continue this with Jesse.
Highest standard. We are not there yet at an ultimate trial, but right now this is definitely a win for the prosecution.
All right. Jesse Weber, thank you as always.
Great seeing you. Thank you.
Great to see you.
And again, for those who just joined us, we usually show a lot of clips that I've edited together myself. Since I've been sick, I'm just going to play some clips that were just put out by news stations. So I'm being a little lazy, but I will get back to my regular stuff as soon as I am feeling better. So I appreciate you guys all being here and bearing with me and listening to my nasally voice.
Even know where you start. But I'm going to ask someone who knows a lot about this, Dave Ehrenberg. He's a state attorney for Palm Beach County and former assistant attorney general. Dave, I feel like in the last decade or two, the document dumps are getting overwhelming. Like mental health days are going to be needed to get through this. And how many people, like seriously, how many sets of eyeballs and eyeball hours will it take to get through all that on both sides? Because prosecutors have to know what's in it. Defense has to know what's in it.
Yeah, Ashley, you've heard of prosecutors getting sanctioned for withholding evidence, but you've never heard of a prosecutor getting sanctioned for providing too much evidence. And that's why prosecutors will err on the side of disclosure. And that means that defense counsel and their investigators are going to have to look through the hours and hours of video, but generally they know the approximate areas they're going to look through. They're not just going to sit there second by second. They have techniques where they can fast forward to the most important times because they'll know when the crucial times are on the videos. Now, keep in mind, when you ask for a phone record, like if you're going to ask a phone company for the records of Kohberger's phone, that alone could be about 12,000 pages. And then you multiply that by all the different phones that were being seized, and you can already come out to 1 million pages just like that. So, this is why, prosecutors have so many documents to turn over, because the last thing they want is for sanctions because they didn't turn over enough.
So we see Bill Taylor, the DA, and we see.
Thank you so much, Pizza Chemist, for gifting the memberships, and welcome to all the members. I'm so happy to have you here with us. We're going to just talk about this. I know it sounds boring because they're just talking about the digital information, but these things in court play out as very important details. And a lot of times we'll listen to them tracking the GPS and tracking the pings and all that, like during the trial. And we're just like, oh, this is so boring. Did you listen? Or, we wait for people to kind of sum it up, like the experts on news stations and all that, sum up what they were talking about with this digital stuff, because it's just a different language to me. But after this clip, I'm going to play. Now, again, this is just another alleged story about how he set up a camera system for somebody he worked with and possibly could have been spying on her through that. So give me a second to get through this kind of boring talk about terabytes. It is important information, even if it is just kind of another language to us.
Ann Taylor over on the other side, or Bill Thompson, I should say. And I imagine they've got a small staff because this is taxpayers' dime for both defense and prosecution. But how many staff will it take to be able to get through that? Because it could be that needle in a haystack that either nails him into the coffin or frees him. And both sides need to find that needle if it's there. How many people do they usually get?
Well, if the defense counsel think that they need more people, they go to the judge and they'll get an additional appropriation, more money to go hire more people, because the court will always try to ensure that a defendant's Sixth Amendment right is being honored, a right to a fair trial. So defense counsel will get more appropriations. They're already getting more lawyers than originally. And I think, actually, this is one reason why the defense lawyers for Kohberger waived their right to a speedy trial. That way they can have more time to look over all of the evidence. So they're prepared for this. I don't think necessarily are prepared for 51 terabytes, but this is a huge case involving multi-level law enforcement agencies, state, local, and federal. So they all have their discovery they had to turn over to the defense.
Now, we're not only, think about I'm just going to reference other trials. Think about the Alex Murdaugh trial and Lori Vallow. Those, even the Johnny Depp trial, because we followed that here. And good morning, C-Dub. It's good to see you. It's just, those took what? 6+ weeks. And those victims, the Alex Murdaugh one, it was Maggie and Paul, and it was very extensive. They had to go through each of their injuries, and a medical examiner for both sides has to go up on the stand and say, I believe this is how she received this one, and I believe this is how, and of course, the defense and the prosecution for the Murdaugh trial, they weren't in agreement about how Maggie or Paul was shot, what angle, how this happened and how that. So the same thing is going to take place in the Idaho 4 case, of course, obviously, but think about the magnitude that that's going to be. We got to go through Ethan. We got to go through Xana, Maddie and Kaylee. So it's going to be a very long trial. It's going to be very extensive. We're going to really be in for a ride if he pleads not guilty today, because it's just going to get crazier and crazier. I mean, we anticipated it to be wild when we were strapped in and ready for the Vallow Daybell one. And we found out a lot of information at that preliminary hearing. And that was months, I think a year before the trial took place. So we found out like that JJ was wrapped with duct tape, etc. Now, we don't get that preliminary hearing here, but once we get that information at trial, like right now, we think we know a lot, but we don't. We really don't. They gave us a lot in the affidavit, like when they walk through the crime scene and they say, Xana was laying on the floor, and she was observed first. And then, there was a male in the room. We got the play-by-play, but we don't have the magnitude of information that we're going to get. So I just think that what we think we know, we just are going to be blown away. And it's just, I'm happy to go through it all with you guys, and it can be very draining. And that was another reason why it was strange timing for me to get sick, because it was right after the Lori Vallow case. And it was just very draining and sad, to hear about those children losing their lives that way. Now we're going to hear about these young adults. They are children to their parents. I mean, Maddie was an only child. That's devastating to think about, so we're going to have to be prepared for sure. And I really don't think that we are ever prepared for the information that ends up coming out in trial. But I know that a lot of the families and, Steve said the other day in an interview, he's ready to get to court. So strap in, guys. U.S. Hello. Hi, ATS News. If he pleads guilty, will they remove the gag order? Will they release all the discovery? I think that that's what ends up taking place. I'm not 100% sure. Justice Daly, do you know? Justice Serve Daly, do you know the answer to that question? But I know that if he takes a plea deal, that's what ended up happening in the Chris Watts case. He actually pled guilty in November, and then by, I don't know, December or January, the public had the discovery. Different state, that was Colorado, so I'm not sure, how Idaho does things, but that's so nice of you, Elizabeth. She said, I still pray for Xana's mom daily. And I was going through some editing for my documentary that'll be out Sunday for those who just joined. And I just couldn't put in her interviews with Ashley Banfield. It was just too hard to look at. And I just feel like she was just in a very vulnerable state. So I will not be adding those interviews with Xana and Ashley in the documentary. But I will say that Ashley is in my documentary. So is Nancy Grace. And so is Vinnie Politan from Court TV. So I just want to give everyone a heads up, because I know some people, I hate this one, or I like that one, or I don't like this one. They're all going to be in there. So just a heads up, guys.
Man, that is, I mean, if you had 200 people on staff, it would still be a massive job. I truly don't know how they're going to get through it all and still have the right eyes on it on both sides, like I said. Dave, thank you. It's always good to have you on. Dave Ehrenberg, you're the best. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe.
So let me just play the clip that came out a few days ago alleging that he had set up a camera for somebody who knew him. Again, this is all rumor. This isn't proven 100%. But since they have collected these terabytes and all this digital information, this will be easy to prove in court if this was actually factual information. So we shall see.
Morning, 28-year-old Bryankohberger, the man suspected of killing 4 University of Idaho students last November, is said to be arraigned after a grand jury last week indicted him on charges related.
Wait, hold on, not this one. We'll get to that one. That one came out, I think, an hour ago. This one, which was like 19 hours ago or whatever.
And now to the Idaho murders case. Suspected killer Bryankohberger is set to be arraigned on Monday morning at 9 a.m. This comes after a grand jury indicted him on 4 counts.
How to open your car door when you're trapped underwater.
Degree murder on Tuesday. And now we are learning more about the suspects from Kohberger's own family, along with another bombshell allegation claiming the suspect, Bryankohberger, was involved in another crime that happened before these murders. Now, this incident involved his female co-worker at Washington State.
Before I proceed with this, it just kind of reminded me of another piece of information that came out very early on in the investigation. I'm curious if you guys remember it. Remember when there were tips coming out, or people had looked up, maybe it was they looked up 911 records or something, and there were more than one that was close to Brian's apartment that stated that they thought somebody had broken into their room or something, and there were footprints by the window. Do you guys remember those? And everyone was kind of saying like, huh, this is weird. This is, after he moved to Washington, and this is right near his house. And it was like pretty much insinuating that somebody was breaking into females' rooms and stuff like that, and that they had thought that they'd seen footprints outside their windows and stuff. Do you guys remember that? Because if this is a true actual event that took place that Ashley Banfield's going, or that News Nation's going to talk about right now, then I find it like almost like it's like corroborated information possibly that those crimes could actually have been Brian, and he actually was doing stuff like that. Okay, so Johnny remembers. I don't know. Ford Canal says, was it not a car? I feel like, okay, maybe there was one that was a car. Yes, a car break-in with moving underwear. Yuck. Something strange was going on. The girl with the suitcase moved on Dateline. So creepy. Yeah, I heard about that. I also heard that took place before he moved there. So I don't know why Dateline put that in there if that's the case. Again, I don't know 100%. But I don't know. There did seem to be some events that were taking place, Unravel remembers, that they had thought there was like break-ins or some sort of like weird stuff going on in people's rooms and stuff. I don't know. But if those are tied to him, then maybe this story is 100% factual.
University. According to a Dateline report, someone allegedly broke into the woman's apartment and moved things around. Instead of calling police, the coworker called Kohberger, who suggested and helped her install security cameras. But the report says Kohberger was behind that break-in and used those cameras to spy on her. Let's bring in now News Nation national security.
Yes, and we can't forget about Buddy, the dog that was skinned. Very strange. And that happened after he moved to Washington. Could he be the doorbell ringtone guy in the ski mask? I think that it's possible. I'm not 100% sure, though. And what kind of mask did Dylan see on the guy? She was able to see his bushy eyebrows, allegedly. So Local Last says, I seen the footage of the weird suitcase thing months ago, and I don't think that it was Bryankohberger. I don't know why Dateline included that story. Because it just didn't seem like it was him, because people had pointed out, like, yeah, but that took place before he was ever even out there. I don't know, guys. Very strange. They got to keep things interesting, though.
Contributor, former CIA officer and FBI special agent Tracy Walder. Tracy, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Always great to see you. So first, let's start with this new allegation, which claims Kohberger broke into his female colleague's home and how he used this incident to spy on her. What does this claim tell you about Kohberger himself?
So, look, we have to take all of these as just claims, right? We don't necessarily have multiple sources, reporting that this is true. If this is true, and if this indeed happened, it really does point to his sort of pattern of stalking. I have always believed, it's just my personal opinion, that the victims in the Idaho Kings Road house were not randomly selected. I do believe that in some way he stalked them, whether that was digitally or physically, we don't know. And so what this could point to is a pattern of stalking. In
Now, to just add to what Tracy is saying here, we have the report that came out months ago that he contacted one of the victims on Instagram and they never opened his messages. So when she's saying, like, it's very possible that he stalked them, digitally or in person, that sort of, if that's true, then that kind of corroborates her theory here that he was kind of reaching out to them on social media, stalking them, if you will. If he is Papa Rogers, we showed earlier in the stream that he created a Facebook group, allegedly it's him, centered around this crime, and the cover photo for the group had Maddie in every single photo, and those pictures came from her social media. So was he saving photos of her in his own device, and then he's Papa Rogers, so he used those photos and created the cover? And it's just, it's definitely probable. It's definitely probable for sure. And Tracy would know with her experience that these things do happen. Blue Petunia, is good to see you. I keep hearing this theory on Bethany's story involving Bryankohberger being at the house previous for drug related stuff, but the big story is that she was sleeping with him. How would anybody know who anyone is sleeping with without direct proof? For one. And for two, that is probable as far as, I mean, a lot of you guys have been their age in college too. I mean, were they smoking weed together? Was somebody the access for the weed or whatever, you know what I mean? I don't know what types of drugs they were using. I don't know. And I don't want to just suggest that these kids were doing that, but at the same time, if we've all kind of think about what's probable, I mean, it could be true, and in fact, you just reminded me of something that I want to play for you guys after this, that will kind of take us to possibly a theory of, drug related stuff possibly happening in the house. And when I say drug related stuff, I'm just speculating, saying like, okay, say they had access to weed and they were the ones that were selling it to people. I'm not going to say that they were anything harder than that, because I just don't know. But I will say that a lot of people in college smoke weed. So we'll just pretend that that's what was going on when we talk about this other theory after I play some clips for you guys, okay?
That he was surveilling this person remotely or in some kind of digital way. So that's what this would help point to.
And another huge claim from that Dateline report involves Kohberger's older sister. During the time of the killing, she noticed that her brother was wearing latex gloves around their parents' home and that he drove the white car police were searching for nationwide. That sister also suggested her brother was behind the killing. So now we reported that an ID and other evidence was taken from Kohberger's parents' home. What's the likelihood that his own family helped investigators discover that evidence if these claims are true?
You know, if these claims are true, I wouldn't be surprised that someone in his family suspected that he was involved in this. If he was walking around wearing latex gloves consistently, you know, dumping his trash in neighbors' trash, and even going through his own trash and making sure that there was nothing suspect in it. He drives a white Hyundai. He lived close to the scene of the crime. You know, I think those are all valid inferences, quite frankly, that members of his family could have made. But I could see people being on both sides of the fence. I could see his sister perhaps making a claim like this, and someone like his father sort of in a way brushing that off. I would imagine it's very hard to be a parent and have a child being accused of something so heinous.
Certainly, I can't imagine. So instead of holding a preliminary hearing, as you know, a grand jury indicted Kohberger for the murders, but a grand jury proceedings, those are secret, and the defense does not get to question witnesses or hear the case presented. So why do you think prosecutors opted for the grand jury in this case?
You know, I think that they probably opted for the grand jury and that they most likely had a preponderance of evidence. Quite frankly, I remember as an FBI agent going and testifying, you know, in front of grand juries, and basically, you know, my boss telling me, if you don't get an indictment, don't bother to come back. Typically, when you go through to a grand jury indictment, you want to make sure that you have more than enough evidence to present that is going to return an indictment. And I think that in a way, they wanted to be able to just provide the defense with a transcript of this, which the defense will get, and not have to lay all of their cards out on the table.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com.
All right, let me just share another one that came out like an hour ago by ABC News, and then we will get into this theory that perhaps there was something in the house, drugs perhaps, that is related to something in the crime. I don't know, but I know that a lot of people have been talking about that theory. So give me a second. Let me play this. There was something else I wanted to add too. Give me a second, guys.
Murders of Ethan Chapin, Kaylee Gonzalez, Xana Kernodle, and Madison Mogan. Kohberger is expected to plead not guilty to 4 charges of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary.
Right now, although we seem to have mounting evidence against Mr. Kohberger, it's still anyone's game because there's a lot of information that the defense is going to hold and not release to the public.
Authorities say Kohberger orchestrated and carried out the attack, then returned to work pursuing his PhD in criminology before making a cross-country trip home to Pennsylvania with his father. Kohberger was pulled over twice along the way.
Okay.
After a month-long investigation, Kohberger was arrested. Investigators saying they matched his DNA to that found on a leather knife sheath found at the crime scene.
We have a search warrant for the building.
Authorities searched his apartment in Pullman, Washington, less than 10 miles from the murder scene. Prosecutors amassing more than 20,000 pieces of evidence, including a pillow and mattress cover they say tested presumptive positive for blood. The big mystery that remains, the motive. We could hear more on that today.
And whose blood is on that mattress cover? You know, we just know that there was blood on there. We don't know the details behind that. I'm trying to think. Now, there was something that was released. Okay, so Marshall Dove said Dateline sure made a lot of statements about his sister and her involvement, which has never been mentioned. Not liking Dateline right now. Reckless speculation presented as truth done pre-trial. I totally get that. And I was on that page like months ago when Ashley Banfield and News Nation was coming out with a story like every 5 minutes about my sources told me this and my sources told me that. Now, remember in the Murdaugh trial, for those who followed it, a year before the trial, they had news reports coming out that Maggie was headed towards divorce. So we all were sitting on the edge of our seats during the Alex Murdaugh trial to find out, like, okay, so what evidence do they have to present those accusations with? Because we really don't have anything. And they never came forward and said, yes, she spoke with me and they were headed for divorce, or she contacted a lawyer. Here, we can show you that they met up on this date. That never happened. Now, is it true? Does that make it not true because it never came out in trial? Like, no, I honestly think that she was looking for divorce. And then the nail tech came out after the trial and said, yeah, she spoke with me about it. And the state contacted me and said that I might be called as a witness, but they never called her because obviously hearsay and all that. So I think that sometimes information comes out before a trial that actually is true. And sources from the beginning of journalism and reporting the news, they are protected. So there has been times when sources come forward and they say like, psst, 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 this happened and blah, blah, but don't name our name. You know, like the thing is the media and the police work hand in hand. And they really do have ways that they can give out information and be protective. Now, with a gag order, I can't compare like another case that had a gag order and sources were still coming out. But I do know that the amendment, whatever is protected for the media, that they're able to probably break a gag order and still be protected. I mean, through these sources, I think that it's possible. I'm not saying that it's 100%, but I do think that there are times when something comes out and it was actually, it was true. Now, for Dateline to come up with stuff and make it up, that's very risky as far as, you know, them as like an entity. But at the same time, they're a huge entity. And we've seen big channels, for those who are YouTubers in this chat, we've seen huge YouTube channels put out information that was wrong. And us smaller channels are like, no, that they got that wrong. Like, that's not what happened. But we don't have a say really because the big channel already spun the narrative, you know? So is that what Dateline's doing? Did they actually get sources that told them this stuff? It would be very risky for them to kind of make up the source that Papa Rogers is Brian, because it will come out if that was him or not. But by then, there's such a big channel and reputable. Would people turn their back to Dateline and never watch them again because they gave out wrong information? I feel like they've probably given out wrong information in the past and they're still running strong. So it's just hard. If they are leaking information, then, you know, that's wrong too, especially with a gag order. But at the same time, they're protected, I feel. Unless somebody comes out and says, this is who it was, this person right here, then that person will be held accountable. But I just think that it's possible that these sources are coming out and saying these things in secrecy. I think it's possible. I'm not saying that it's 100% true and we should believe everything that they're saying. Like, my source said this, but Ashley Banfield did come out saying that there will be no preliminary hearing and it's already going to be done, or it's going to be done on this day. And she was right. So I don't know. But in regards to his sister, Dateline was saying that his sister called him out on him wearing gloves around the house, living near Moscow and driving a white Elantra, and made his family search his car. I've also seen other people say she searched his car, you know, so it's just like his sister wasn't on Dateline given this information. So we already know that this is a hearsay through somebody. So it's just, but at the same time, if you saw your sibling wearing gloves, and law enforcement has come out saying that he was wearing gloves, pretty sure there was like a leaked text message from a law enforcement person in Pennsylvania early in the case in one of my first live streams, where they were telling somebody that, like, yeah, we've got our eye on him and he's wearing gloves in the grocery store. And then everyone was like, oh, that's probably not true. And then it came out that he was wearing gloves. So I think that there are times when these sources and leaks are valid and accurate, but time will tell. Time is definitely going to tell. But thank you all for being here. Let's see.
If Kohberger does not enter, or if Kohberger does enter a not guilty plea, the court will schedule his trial. If convicted, he could face the death penalty.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking.
And not only could he face the death penalty, but as a new law in Idaho, they have approved the firing squad. Just saying. I'm not saying I want that to happen or that I'm for that or that I'm against that. I'm just saying that that is something that is new in Idaho. So this here is a news report. And this is from the first day, guys. Hold on. Let me check the date on this. Now, just going back to what Johnny was saying earlier in chat, and what a lot of people have saying, okay, so this came out the day after. So it took place in the morning hours of the 13th. This is the day after. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to. Okay. Okay, so E. Caroline says First Amendment cases about journalist sources protect journalists from needing to reveal, but leaker might be in trouble with judge. I don't know. I really don't know. I just know that there are instances where sources they're allowed to leak to the media. And if it's coming from law enforcement or the prosecution team, and they're the ones breaking the gag order, I mean, who's going to hold them accountable? I'm not saying that that's the case or that it's right or wrong. I'm just saying I think that it's possible that people like the state or whoever are in contact with a big news entity like Dateline and saying, you can tell them that Papa Rogers was Brian because we know it. We also know that they pulled an Amazon search warrant through the information that they gave the public. And you can look through at the search warrants that they put in for Brian. They had, the social media accounts. They also had one for Amazon. So people are kind of putting it together. Like, is that where Dateline got it? Just because they told us that they did a search warrant for Amazon account? Or is it that? And then the source corroborated, like, yes, we actually found out that that's where the knife came from, So I just think that it's possible at this point, especially with no preliminary hearing, that perhaps the state and law enforcement are saying to the media behind the scenes, like, don't name us, but we'll let you know this and we'll let you know that, Time's only going to tell. But that is why I took kind of a break from everything with this case, because of these sources and this person said this and that and blah, blah, blah. It was just getting to be too much. But at the same time, now that time's gone on, to me, it would seem believable that Dateline would have the access and ability to get some information that nobody else was kind of knowing about or talking about because time has gone on. But I don't know. Gag order is to stop leaks, etc. Their source isn't anyone close enough to be included in the gag order, in my opinion. And that could definitely be it too. All right, so bear with me, guys, as we kind of go through this. And I haven't watched this in a while, but I've kept it because I felt it was noteworthy. There was a lot of stuff going around. Yay, CDT agrees with me. I hope you had a good time with your family this weekend, CDT. Missed you. So, like you guys know, there's a lot of rumors going around with drug use and so was on drugs that night. So that's why she didn't do this. And that's why she locked the door and blah, 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 blah. Hold on. There's, of course, the garbage truck's outside right now. But you guys know that people have been speculating about so-and-so was buying drugs from Brian, or Brian was doing drugs with so-and-so. And, there's just all this stuff going around. Hang on, guys. So everyone's aware of those conversations being had. Sorry, I had to pause it while it was beeping. Oh, yeah, sausage toes. My little one, we have to go up to the window every time the garbage truck comes because she loves to see it, like, get picked up. And one time, the garbage guy went to put the trash thing down, and he messed up. Must have been a new guy, and my little one was like, "Uh-oh." It was just so funny that she recognized that he had done it wrong. Anyways, moving on. So we all know that there's speculation going around about drug use in the house, possibly, I'm just going to say it was weed because I don't want to speculate anything harder than that because I don't know. I'm not going to say so and so was doing cocaine and all this stuff. I'm not going to say it, but we're going to pretend that perhaps one of them had a bag of weed in the house or something like that. And maybe, we all want to know, why didn't Dylan call 911 at that moment? Why did she go back to bed? Why did she lock her door and then go back to bed? Not only did she shut the door after seeing that, but she locked it. She must have had some sense of, this isn't right. I want to be protected, or maybe something in her room she wanted to protect, right? I mean, all this stuff has been out there and speculated on. So would weed make you sleepy and disoriented? Yeah, definitely, especially if it was a weed brownie. All right, so that is just, I'm just going to say this is speculation. Yeah, people need to know why they didn't call 911. This is all stuff that's been going around. Oh, Johnny, I think that was fake. That has never come out in public. Yes, 243 in chat, only 86 likes. Come on, people. The weed brownie is a stretch. I mean, I'm just saying, let's pretend. Exactly. It's college town. There's probably some party drugs. I mean, let's just be real. I'm not victim shaming, and I'm not pointing the finger that so-and-so was doing this and so-and-so was doing that, because I just don't know. But we all want to know, what was the delay for 911? Why did Dylan go back to bed? Why did she lock the door? Why blah, 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 So let's just revisit this. This is the day after the murders. This is November 14th. This is before anything was really coming out that was like concrete. Yes, this is what happened. They know. I mean, everything was up in the air at this point. Everyone was confused. Even the parents, remember during Chronicles of Olivia's documentary she did, that they had heard something about gunshots. Like there was like a gunshot or something, remember? And they just didn't even know the cause of death or anything. It was just so much questions, like why? So then I end up watching this news thing again a while ago. I think this comes from my group chat with Alex Erickson and CDT. And something about it is just, it's strange to me. But after speculating, and everyone's been kind of going around with this theory about drugs, and perhaps Dylan had drugs in her room, and so she locked the door. I don't know, but I just thought that this was interesting. Hold on. Really, Marie? I don't know. I've seen things from smoking weed before, and I medicinally am prescribed it for anxiety and stuff, but they're back in college. Like I can remember, I mean, there were times like, I don't know. I guess it depends on the strain. And thank you, Allison, for becoming a member. I appreciate you. But anyways, I mean, there could be mushrooms in the house. I'm just saying, like, let's just go down that avenue of perhaps there was drugs in the house. Okay. So just keep that in your mind. I don't know which ones, and I don't know what anyone was feeling, but it is questionable why Dylan locked the door and goes back to bed, so just bear with me.
Were found dead in an off-campus house yesterday morning. Today, both the university and police identified the students who were killed. 3 of them are from Idaho. News Channel 7's Andrew Bartline and photographer Troy Colson made their way up to Moscow today. Andrew is now live at the scene. So, Andrew, what can you tell us since you've arrived there?
Well, first off, we'll set the scene for where we are on campus. It's kind of the corner of Queen and King. If you're not familiar with their roads, I mean, it's just kind of off the campus, kind of near one of those Greek row sections as it's sort of broken into two here up at the University of Idaho, pretty close to that water tower. We talked with the Moscow mayor, Art Bedke. He tells us that it's just the start of an investigation. He tells us that this scene is complex. It's going to take time to work through. He said the Idaho State Police is going to be bringing up a mobile unit to the area as well.
Now, just revisiting this and knowing who the mayor is, I can put a face to the name now. You know, why is a mayor talking to the reporters? Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't he a political figure and he has nothing to do with the investigation? So that first and foremost was a misstep, I believe, by Moscow. I don't know why they had the mayor come out. He was also the one that came out saying that, what did he say? A crime of passion. That's what it was. He said to the media that, oh, it was a crime of passion. And then all of a sudden, everyone was like, what? And then he kind of they shoot him away and they're like, please don't talk to anyone anymore. It was just like the coroner and the mayor should not have been coming out speaking on the investigation the way they were. Unfortunately, it took the police a minute to kind of come out and do a press conference and kind of clarify things. So it was just unfortunate for people like us who are interested in all the details and the facts to hear these things coming out from somebody other than a law enforcement agency. You know, the mayor, appreciate you, but I want to hear from the chief of police, you know, or I want to hear from state police. But for some reason, the coroner and the mayor were coming out speaking. So it created a lot of confusion, in my opinion. And good morning, Nicole. It's good to see you. So already I'm revisiting this and I'm kind of like, okay, so this guy's getting this information from the mayor. Great.
To sort of sort through this more complex crime scene, he says. He says there's no ongoing threat at the time. Wanted to make that clear and echo.
There's no ongoing threat at the time. He wanted to make that clear. Now, knowing what we know now, as far as the girls were killed and then Ethan is thrown in there, which was sort of mind-boggling because it's like, at first you would think like, okay, maybe one of these girls rejected him or something like that. But then you think, but why Ethan? You know, did he not know he was there? Blah, blah, blah. And oddly enough, Papa Rogers on Facebook says something about him not knowing he was there, perhaps, like raised that question in the group. But that's besides the point. Here, you know, I'm reiterating the fact that the mayor and everyone has been saying this has been targeted. Oh, Brooks, good to see you. This has been targeted and crime of passion, and there's no threat to the public. He wanted to make that clear. Why? How do they know that? They were correct in a way because nothing took place from the time Brian committed these crimes. He was in the community and then drove cross country he was around for weeks. Yes, he was being surveilled by authorities, but he didn't commit another heinous crime.
What we've heard from police, but there is no suspect. There's nobody in custody right now in relation to this. Now, this quote that's going around, a crime of passion that has been seen in several media outlets published, he clarified that to us. The mayor is not saying it is a crime of passion. He says it could be a crime of passion.
And I love how he comes out saying it's a crime of passion the first day. And then the day after, he's like, I'm not saying it is. I'm saying it could be. So that to me is very interesting because what does the mayor know? You know, obviously he knows more about the scene than we all do. So for him to kind of say that and then kind of walk it back and say, well, it could be. What does that scene look like? Because Ethan's thrown in there. So what would make them think that that was a crime of passion? You know, 3 females and a guy. Just very strange that even when he tries to walk it back and say, I'm not saying it is, I'm saying it could be. CDT says, I also still want to know more about that doctor appointment he went to 4 days after the murders. Right. And all that can be released during the trial, right? Or no? Because I know that it's under HIPAA protection, but can they pull it because of the trial? You know, will they be able to? We didn't get any information from Lori's doctors at all in her trial because she didn't want to go down the route. Her lawyers didn't go down the mental illness route. So what exactly will the defense do for Bryan if he pleads not guilty today, which is hours away, guys? We are still on the verge of finding out, will he plead not guilty? A lot of people think not guilty. So will the defense pull anything as far as medical, like, oh, my client did this because blah, 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 and he is diagnosed with blah, 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 you know? So will we find out more about that doctor information? There's a chance that we might not, depending on what kind of defense the defense uses. But at the same time, I'm not sure what the prosecution would be able to kind of pull out, or maybe that doctor would become a witness and come up and say this, this, and that. But I'm not sure what kind of protection HIPAA withstands once it gets to trial. I do know from the Lori Vallow one, though, that no doctors presented anything or nothing was brought up about her mental state or her ailments or whatever, because they just decided not to. She didn't want to go that route. So it's still going to be kind of up in the air. Like, what will the defense decide to use?
Also clarified that it could have been a burglary gone wrong. There's a couple.
Now, that's something I want to go back and look at, a rewind again. So you hear that? He's speaking about the mayor, and he spoke to the mayor before he went on the air here. And he says he wanted to clarify that it might not be a crime of passion, but it could be. And now he's saying, and also it could have been a burglary gone wrong. Now, this part to me stands out in my mind if we're going to think about some drug theories that have been going around, and how maybe a roommate thought that they were going to be robbed of their stash in their room, or they thought that that's why this person in the black mask was in the house, because they were looking for this stash that they know that the roommate knows is in the house. So for me, this theory that perhaps drugs are related to all this, not only the fact that, you know, it's college, so of course somebody might have something in their room, or it's a very likely that there could be something around the house, you know, that is illicit. So for the mayor to kind of speak to this reporter, and again, this is the day after the murders, very early on, and say, you know, it could have been a burglary gone wrong. And then we think about the fact that Dylan didn't call 911. You know, who's going to call 911 and say, I just saw a masked man in my house and I think he was trying to rob us of our drugs here. Can you send someone over? Or, you know what I mean? Like, maybe there was a hesitancy, you know, she was hesitant to call 911 because she thought in her mind that, oh man, our drugs are being robbed, or he just left with our drugs. You know, do you guys understand what I'm saying here? Like, if it's just so hard to kind of comprehend why Dylan didn't call 911, right? And there's been like real instances where I think I shared one to my true crime group on Facebook where somebody really did call 911 because cops were there at the scene and they were saying that so-and-so stole my crack. And the officer was just in disbelief, like, you really called me here because they stole drugs from you, like, or whatever. It was something ridiculous like that, you know. Corey gets it. Thank you. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, I've hesitated to call cops because I had pot. Yeah. She was self-preserving, in my opinion. CDT gets what I'm getting at. So what I'm saying is it's interesting that if we're going to go down the theory that she didn't call 911 because there was illegal substances in the house, it's kind of like, okay, I get it. Now, the other thing we know is through Xana's mother and father, they came out saying that we were just there the night or the weekend prior changing locks on her doors. Now, was something done where somebody had taken something from somebody's room? And they're like, this is BS. Like, I don't want my stuff rummaged through. I'm sick of people coming in and out of this house. We saw in body cam footages that it was pretty open for people to come through there and party even when the residents weren't home. So was Xana or somebody just fed up with their room possibly getting rummaged through, or just wanted more privacy and said, Dad, please come here and change my locks. You know, I don't want people robbing me, you know? So then Dylan gets woken up, hears this stuff, and sees somebody in a black mask. She shuts the door and locks it because she's got stuff in her room she doesn't want stolen. Or, you know, obviously at that point she's thinking like, great, somebody just broke in here. They're coming in and out of this house like normal, and they just took something. I'm locking my door, you know, like, great. And goes back to bed. I mean, nobody really is going to think something like this happens because it's just so heinous and unbelievable, right? Yeah, that's the other thing too, CDT. It's like the screaming. So even if she thought something like a robbery was going on, what would she have explained with the screaming? I don't know. I mean, you just don't think that something like this is going to happen. So they hear noises and they're just thinking like, oh, they're just partying or whatever. Or they're just playing around, or who knows what it's hard to comprehend. But when fear takes over, you never know what you will do. Exactly, Tony. And that, I mean, there's been instances where I'm in a situation and I thought I would have handled it a different way. But when I'm in that situation, I don't handle it that way. And I'm like, I look back and I'm like, wow, that was stupid. Why didn't you just do this? You know, so it's just a lot of different scenarios could take place. There's a lot of different rationalizing that she could have been putting through their head. No one thinks that someone's going in there with a K-bar and slaughtering her whole roommates, including Ethan. There could have been a level of her thinking like, there's no way something bad happened because Ethan is here. He would have protected us or something. You know, Ethan was a big guy, which is still unbelievable that Brian allegedly decided to take him on too after being upstairs first, you know? So the arraignment, thank you, Karen, is in 2 hours. Fight, flight, or freeze. Then I guess both roommates chose flight. Now, Bethany, is she believed to have just been asleep this whole time? We haven't heard that really. You know, we haven't really heard much of her side just yet. But let me just rewind this a minute. Hi, Jessie Lynn. Good to see you. She said, I wish we were having the preliminaries so that the state would have had to present in front of a judge along with the defense and their facts and evidence and having a judge decide. Now we wait longer. We wait longer to get information, but I feel like we're closer to a trial than we would be after waiting for the preliminary. I don't know. Is that flight or freeze? I don't know. I just know, yeah, we don't know much about Bethany's version or anything. So we have a lot to find out still. We definitely would have found out more in a month in June at the preliminary. But now that we're doing this secret indictment and all that, you know, we might get to the trial quicker. However, I'm still seeing that a lot of the experts are saying that not until 2024. So it's not like anything this year will happen. Yes, I agree, Local Lass. I think the text between Bethany and Dylan will be interesting and maybe a problem for the prosecution. We'll see. So let me just rewind this again, because a lot of people, Allison, have been in a situation where they're frozen, and you don't ever think that you'd act that way in a situation, because you think, no, this is what you do in that. And you're told over and over, like conditioned by your family, by your teachers. When you catch on fire, what do we all learn? Stop, drop, and roll. How many times have you seen an instance or hear about something where you heard somebody caught on fire and they didn't drop and roll? You just don't do things that like you're conditioned to do sometimes when you're in that situation. Now, again, this reporter spoke to the mayor. Give me a second, guys. This reporter spoke to the mayor before he went on this broadcast. The mayor tries to backtrack a little bit, but not 100%, about him saying it was a crime of passion. I'm not saying it is a crime of passion. I'm saying it could be. Okay, so something at the scene screamed to them that this was a crime of passion. Whether he's saying it is or it could be, that's pretty similar in my sense. And then here, we also hear the reporter say that it could have been a burglary. He thinks it, in reference to the mayor, could be a burglary gone wrong. So in the first day, the mayor has said crime of passion, or it could be a crime of passion. And then he's also saying could be a burglary gone wrong. So what information was gathered for him to think that? Why would it have been a burglary gone wrong? Something maybe indicated to them that he was there looking for something. And this is where the drugs speculation and theories come in. I'm not saying that that's true. I'm just saying perhaps that is something to do with why the 911 wasn't called. Dylan perceived this as a burglary gone wrong. We have drugs in the house, and perhaps he was there looking for them. I'm sure even at this day, at this moment, Dylan's trying to process like what exactly happened too. So it's going to be so interesting to see her police interviews, right, guys? I mean, what is really going to be her statement, because her statements in the affidavit alone are shocking. Somebody coming towards you down the hallway with a mask on, dressed in black. That was just, when we all read that, our jaws were, I was almost like, this is like a horror movie I'm reading. It really is. But what is her police interviews going to say? And, for the mayor to have this idea in his mind, like to tell the media, like, could be a burglary gone wrong. Something was said in a statement or something, I believe, where maybe this drug theory does come into play. Maybe that's why she locked her door. Maybe she had her own stash in her room. I don't know, guys. I just know that these theories are out there, and it's possible, it being a college town. She locks the door because she's got contraband or something important in her room that she doesn't want stolen. And maybe she just assumed, like, great, so they're just stealing so-and-so's stash. Xana gets her locks changed the week prior. Did something go missing? We don't know yet. Like, we knew from the body cam footage that came out with the noise complaints that people were inside that house who didn't even live there. They were answering the door, speaking to the cops, and they weren't even the owners of the house. So we'll have to wait and see, because it's just strange timing that Xana's getting her locks changed and the weekend prior, and then this happens, and then this news report comes out that it could be a burglary gone wrong. She locks her door, she doesn't call 911. Why?
But he clarified passion that is in relation to this police, but there is no suspect. There's nobody in custody right now in relation to this. Now, this quote that's going around, a crime of passion, that has been seen in several media outlets published, he clarified that to us. The mayor is not saying it is a crime of passion. He says it could be a crime of passion. He also clarified that it could have been a burglary gone wrong. There's a couple different options right now, but again, complex scene, working through it to find out. Now, we'll show you what some video.
Complex scene could be a few different options. So the options on day one is crime of passion, not saying it is, but it could be, which almost pretty much is the same statement. And then a burglary gone wrong.
Of this looks like earlier today as you're looking around at this area. The tape is still up. As Doug said, 4 students dead. That they were found around noon yesterday. It is a homicide investigation. And now the names are known to us. It's Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, Xana Cornoodle, and Kaylee Goncalves.
Now, I want to just point out something else that I had realized during my editing. So Sunday, I'm going to have a documentary come out on this case for those who are joined us later in the stream. The documentary is basically going to be a whole, just everything we know thus far. And during that, I went through some of the old press conferences. Now, remember, they just said here, the 911 call came in around noon. The exact call came in at 11:58. So technically, that's in the morning, right? So technically, only by a few minutes, but that is still considered the morning. Now, when it came out that Dylan was awake and that she saw somebody in a mask and in black, that was shocking to all of us because we all assumed and were told by the media that the 2 roommates had nothing to do with this and they were unharmed in the incident. So then we were all like, so did they tell us? Why were we under the impression that they were asleep or whatever? Well, then I realized that during one of the press conferences, they say 2 other roommates were unharmed and the 911 call came in later in the morning. Or they didn't realize that something had taken place until later in the morning. Now, that is true because 11:58 is the morning. So there was people going around with a little bit of distrust in law enforcement after we found out that Dylan had seen things go down. And everyone was like, well, they made it seem like they were asleep and that they had no idea and all this stuff. Well, they did in a way, but at the same sense, like the sergeant during the press conference was honest when he said the other roommates weren't made aware until later in the morning when they called 911. That's still a true statement. So I just wanted to say that even though we were kind of like wondering, like, why did they make it seem like they were asleep or whatever? I don't know. You guys will just have to see it yourself. Just all the clips that I've put together. You can tell that law enforcement were keeping their cards close to their chest, but at the same time, when you pick apart their words specifically, they were being honest. Like, yeah, they didn't realize it until later in the morning when they called 911. It still was morning when they called 911, but everyone was like up in arms saying like, what, they told us this and that. I don't know, guys. It's hard for me to explain, but I just am realizing going back through things that like what we thought was happening, they were transparent. They knew more than we did at the moment. They had an idea of things, especially after collecting that audio from the neighbor's house, seeing his car on camera. It took a while for them to give us a car description and stuff, but we got it. And by then they were pretty much already following him. So just going back to this whole first news article and what the mayor was saying to this guy, I find it interesting that, he doesn't really walk back 100% that it was a crime of passion. He's still saying it could be. And the fact that he's saying like burglary gone wrong. If we're going to say, yeah, exactly, Teresa. They had a duty to protect Bethany and Dylan. Exactly. So that's why they chose their words carefully, but they were still honest. They were still honest about things. It's just later in the morning, 11:58 is still the morning. So it's just interesting to me that the first few statements coming out from the scene were crime of passion and a burglary gone wrong. And just the theory of the drug use and drugs in the house and all that, it sort of makes sense to me that perhaps that's why she waited to call, because in her mind, you're not thinking somebody just came in and killed the entire house. In your mind, you're thinking, great, we just got robbed again. And I thought Xana changed her locks, or, he's coming back here to rob us. Let me lock my door so he can't rob what I have in here. And I'm not calling 911 because then the cops are going to come here and be like, why'd you call us? Someone was in your house because you thought they were looking for drugs. It's just kind of coming together in a way a little bit. I'm not saying that this is accurate. I'm not saying that that's what was going through Dylan's mind. I'm just saying that possibly that could explain some things. So let me just play the rest of this clip. Again, this was the day after everything came out.
And we talked with a neighbor who lives right next door to them. She said she knew nothing the night of, but police cars the day after sort of woke them up around noon. And now she says her and all of her roommates and people on this block are going home early for Thanksgiving break.
A lot of people left last night, and then we were like, I know we were like one of the only ones who actually stayed here last night. My mom has called me every single hour for since 7 a.m. this morning. So yeah, they want me to come home if I don't feel safe. They just said, come home. A week worth of school isn't worth it. If you're just gonna be scared every night. So it was just every little noise. I was like, is someone in the house? I don't know. And it was just scary. It's all just shocking and scary. I never would have thought that this would have happened here.
The university canceled classes today. Classes are scheduled to resume tomorrow, but as we mentioned, a handful of students are leaving early. And actually the scene right now, if you want to take us back, you can see that a car is actually now driving in onto the property. This is a Moscow police car. There's already one police car on the property right now, so that would make it two. That other car has been there since we got here earlier today. That was around, I believe, 4 o'clock Mountain Time. So there's a couple moving pieces right now, and it looks like there might be another car. And it does, no, never mind, I take that back. That is a residential car nonetheless. But we're going to stay on top of this. We're going to have more for you at the news at 10, more of our conversation with the mayor and from the people who live in this neighborhood, sort of how they're handling this situation right now. Doug?
So that was just something I wanted to share with you guys. Another thing that another reason why I titled this is interesting, because perhaps that is why there was a delay in the 911 call or confusion by the roommate at that time. I don't know 100%. I'm just saying. Now, going back to Papa Rogers, before we close out, because I did not even expect to fill 142 minutes because I never put anything together. I've been out of the loop, but you guys make it easy to kind of sit here and talk with. So here are some of the other posts by Papa Rogers. A knife is a very risky weapon if you know you are going to murder 4 people. Do we think the killer also had another weapon, such as a stun gun or another knife? Or did they know what they were going to, or did they not know what they were going to encounter? Ethan didn't live at the crime scene. Very possible the killer didn't know he was there. Thoughts? And then he goes on to say, did the killer stop at 4 victims out of exhaustion, convenience, or lack of knowledge? He also goes on to say, regardless of what has been released, I believe this is a sexually motivated crime. Now, if we're going to kind of put that together with the mayor saying crime of passion, it's just if Papa Rogers is indeed Bryankohberger, which is what Dateline is reporting, from their sources, then that's interesting. Let's see what else. We don't know. I think they walked home, then went to a car. I really don't know, just speculating. I believe the killer lived alone, just speculating. Now, that's not his post. That's somebody else saying that. And then he comments to them, the killer lived alone. And then they said to them, we don't know that for sure, but I believe it. Agree. And then they said, what prompts you to think that? We, the public, know nothing about this individual. And he says, a psychopath stays away from longer relationships. They would be someone who struggled with the female relationships, but also doesn't like many people enough to avoid getting close to people. They would not tolerate a roommate. Then it goes on to say, this other post that he made, fight me. Law enforcement is no closer to solving this than they were 30 days ago. Now, that was on the 13th of December. Now, he gets arrested on what? The 14th of December? I don't know. Help me out, chat, or comment down below for replay. One knife, 4 people. The killer took a big risk. Okay, I already read that one. The killer is not a student. Thoughts? And then on the 13th, now, is this during his trip? Because on the 13th, Papa Rogers writes, okay, December 30th. Gotcha. Thank you, chat, for letting me know. Mary Jane, thank you. The white car is a red herring. So that's interesting, too, for him to kind of be spouting out to a whole group. The white car is a red herring because it proved to be not a red herring. All right, guys. I really appreciate you guys being here today, talking about the Dateline sources coming out. Time will tell if those were accurate, as well as everything else that other stations have been reporting as far as sources. What will take place today before we depart? Comment in chat. Will he plead guilty, not guilty? Let me know, guys. And I just really appreciate you guys being here. Remember, if you haven't liked or subscribed, please do so at this moment. It really helps the channel out a lot. And I've been out and sick. So when you're not posting, even though I've been posting shorts, YouTube just doesn't put your channel out there. Like, they just want you to be posting all the time, and then the algorithm pushes your content out there. Well, I'm sick. My little one was sick. I can't be live streaming. I already am not 100%, as you guys can tell by my voice. Anyways, I really appreciate you guys being here. Join Sunday when we watch it. Now it's going to be out first thing in the morning, Sunday Eastern time. And yeah, it's just going to be like encompass everything that we've known and found out thus far. It's going to have clips from the media. It's going to have clips from, the 48 hours and Dateline specials, obviously reformatted so that it falls within fair use. But I'm just going to include everything I can, and I hope you guys like it. Maybe I will go live again after we find out what happens today in court, guilty, not guilty. What will he plead? Maybe we'll go live, later in the week, depending on how I'm feeling. And if there's anything to talk about, again, I expect this to sort of be like a short and sweet court appearance. And I really don't think that we're going to really come out gathering any more new information, but I could be wrong, and we could definitely be surprised. So either way, I really appreciate you guys, and we'll talk very soon. We want to follow this case all the way to the end, like we do with other cases and other trials. We want to see the victims get their justice, and for the families to, close the chapter of seeking the justice that they want for their loved one. Because, Steve Goncalves comes out saying, I'm ready to get to court. They're in a mode where they're ready to fight this battle. And that's all that their minds are thinking about, is that task. But once that's done and over with, we've seen even Larry Woodcock and Kay Woodcock in the Vallow case come out saying, now we've closed that chapter. For a long time, that was what was keeping them going, is like, we have to get justice. So that's the mode that the families are in. And we just send all of our thoughts and prayers with them. And thank you all for being here. We will talk very, very soon. And yes, Pointer Lover, this is going to be a long haul, and we're all in it together. So again, check out the channels that I've mentioned earlier in chat, CDT for sure. And we'll talk soon. I'll probably see you in the YouTube streets and other chats and all that. So, oh, Holly Thomas, no problem. Thanks for being here. And yeah, I'm excited to see what happens today. So check my community page too, because I might post stuff in there as we get information too. And thank you so much, everyone who's sending well wishes. I really appreciate it. Thank you, guys.